So maybe you've thought about investing in an Airbnb or short-term rentals, or maybe you already have one and you're looking for some sage advice. And arguably one of the best places to go for sage advice is somebody like Dave Ramsey. I've taken Dave's course. I have a lot of respect for him, and I think he's helped millions of people. So you can imagine that I was pretty surprised, in fact, even shocked, when I recently listened to his advice about short-term rentals, and he was just plain wrong. Now, how do I know it's all wrong? I'm an Airbnb investor. I'm an Airbnb Superhost, and I manage all of my rentals myself, no property manager, in just a few minutes a week. But just to show you what I'm talking about, I thought I'd share this clip from Dave's recent advice session on Airbnb. And let me set this up. He has a caller that calls in. Caller is living in Texas. He's moving to Oklahoma. And he says, hey, Dave, what I'd like to do is I'd like to keep my current property in Texas and rent it out on Airbnb. And he wants to do that to become more financially independent. And so Dave's going to initially react and say, hey, I love that idea, referring to the financial independence. And then he's going to talk about sort of what he thinks about Airbnb. So let me just share this with you because I thought this was interesting, and then we'll talk about it for a minute.
I love your goal, and I don't dislike your plan overall. I would sell the house and move the money to Oklahoma, pile up some more cash, and pay cash for your first rental in your own backyard. Airbnbs have two problems that all the people that talk about how much money they make with them don't bring up. They have three problems.
I love this. Dave comes up with more.
Problem number one, there's a ton of hassle, a lot of details, a lot of work involved in getting the people in, getting them out, getting them cleaned, all that kind of stuff. Like probably 25x a normal rental, because you'll have multiple renters in a single month, right? And so you've got maid service, you've got a higher level of maintenance, you've got a lot of work involved in managing and messing with them.
Okay, again, let me just stop Dave there for a second. I love Dave. I think he's got a lot of good advice for people. But do you really think that if it took anyone 25 times as much work, that any host would be involved in Airbnb? No, right? What this says to me is that Dave doesn't own an Airbnb, and Dave doesn't have any direct experience. He's really just sharing sort of the noise that maybe he's heard. He's right when he says you have multiple people in every single month. I have multiple people checking in and out every single day. And most of those people I don't necessarily interact with because I've got systems and processes in place to handle that. So, could it be 25 times as busy as a long-term rental? Maybe. But let me just say this. You're really doing it wrong if it's 25 times as much. I'll also say I've had short-term rentals. I've had long-term rentals. I would take a short-term rental in a heartbeat over a long-term rental. Just in terms of the level of interaction and maintenance and things like that required. I just want you to think about it. And Dave will talk about this here in just a minute. We'll talk more about it. So let's go back to Dave.
Okay. So a lot of hassle.
Could I speak?
Go ahead.
So sorry to interrupt. Can I just speak to that? I do have family here in Texas that would be managing the property. And so I kind of have a little bit of a built-in system which is a
bad idea.
And Dave's right.
You're taking advantage of your family. Okay.
You don't want to take advantage of your family.
Airbnb, the hassle factor is very high. There's great money, but the hassle factor is very high.
So Dave's right.
If you want to do an Airbnb, it needs to be in your backyard. Problem number one with Airbnbs. Problem number.
Okay, so let me just briefly talk about this here. He said, Airbnb hassle factor's high, and by the way, it ought to be in your backyard. My first Airbnb was in my backyard. It was 16 miles from my house. And you know what? That's not a bad idea for your first one. My second one was 3,000 miles away. And we literally, worked on the property, got it ready to rent, and then got on the plane. And as I was leaving, I thought this is either going to be, sort of a fantastic success or it's going to be a disaster. And it's been really successful. And so does it have to be in your backyard? No. you need to learn and study and do what you're doing here, which is learn about Airbnbs on YouTube and other places? Yeah, right. And yes, it would be a hassle if you were doing it wrong, but it's really not a hassle if you're doing it right. Okay, back to Dave.
Two with Airbnbs is you have a lot of extra maintenance. People tear the crap out of your property. Nobody talks about that. That's the dirty little secret of Airbnbs. You're constantly buying carpet. You're constantly buying paint and drywall repair because they do not take it. I don't care how big a deposit you get or how much screening you do. It's not their house. And so you're going to have a high level of repairs and maintenance, which is part of that hassle factor.
Okay, let me just stop here for a second. Now, I've known people who have Airbnbs that sleep, 20 or 30 people, and a whole family reunion descends on that place. I imagine that those places can get a little bit hammered. In fact, Airbnb, about a year or so ago, they restricted the maximum number of people that they'll rent to in a single property to 15 because they want to discourage parties. None of my places, first off, sleep that many people. We sleep 6 to 8 maximum because I want it set up for a family or a small group, something like that. The other thing that I've noticed is people don't trash the place. They're there on vacation. They don't have all their stuff in the unit. Most of the time during the day, they're out skiing or surfing or, doing whatever they do. And they're really only there sort of at night and to sleep. And so this idea of drywall repairs and carpet and on, I personally have not had that happen. I've had people break cups. I've had to touch up paint maybe, I don't know, once a year, maybe. I've never had to repair drywall. I'll just contrast that with long-term rentals that I've done. Long-term rentals, just think about it. People are there all the time. They have all their stuff in that place. You get a lot more wear and tear on that place. And again, just my experience has been that the maintenance is quite a bit bigger and more significant on a long-term rental. Okay, back to Dave.
The third thing that nobody's talking about is several areas are now passing zoning prohibiting it.
Right.
And so if you set your whole model up only on Airbnb, you could have the rug jerked out from under you. If the only way the deal works is Airbnb, don't do the deal because it might not be available to you.
Okay, so let me stop there. Dave's not wrong. There are a number of places that are, that really are passing sort of laws and regulations against Airbnb. Every place that I operate is highly regulated. You have to have a permit. And listen, I don't like to jump through hoops. I'm very happy to follow the law, but I don't like to jump through a bunch of hoops, more than anybody else. And at the same time, what I've come to learn and appreciate is that these laws and regulations can actually be a competitive advantage. And so I'll do another video on that, explaining that in a bit more detail. Again, here's what I would tell you is that I think most of Dave's advice is really good. But in this case, Dave paints with a really broad brush, and I would just say he's just plain wrong when it comes to short-term rentals. Again, I have short-term rentals in my backyard. I have them, miles and miles away, and it literally takes me under an hour a week to manage them myself. I don't use a property manager, nothing against property managers, but it can be done. So if you're thinking about getting involved in Airbnb, I would tell you, notwithstanding all of the sort of news and noise and things like that, it's actually a great time to get involved. If you want to learn more about that, stick with me, whether you're new and a beginner or you're experienced, and I'll see if I could share and help you along the way. If you haven't signed up to be a host on Airbnb yet, click the link in the description. You can sign up to be a host. You'll get a small bonus, and I'll actually get to be assigned as your Airbnb ambassador. If you want to learn more about my listings, I've got a link to our Instagram account in the description below as well. You can see kind of our journey and some of the work that we've done. But I'll tell you, not only for us has Airbnb been profitable, but it's also been super, super rewarding. It doesn't mean that it's easy or perfect all the time, but it's been really rewarding. Anyway, if this video has been helpful, please give me a thumbs up, share it with somebody that you think might benefit from it. And appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.